Hello everyone. Today I welcome you all to a discussion on the topic of science and religion. In modern times, efforts have been made to learn more about the possible relationship between science and religion. These views are drawn from early realities of the latter half of the 20th century. So, these views might vary from that of period earlier to it or after it. Now, we can see that technology and science has grown tremendously, even though growth might not have occurred serially. The fields of science and engineering have further diverged into more minute fields. In this manner, even religion is diverse and fragmented. This is why it is obvious that we would not get one single opinion on religion from science. Hence, we can say that religion has its own different aspects that relate to different parts of science in different ways. Now, if we see things historically, we can learn that some sciences have been encouraged by religion and some religions have some kind of relationship with science. Thinkers like R.K. Martin and Richard Westphal were of the view that Protestantism of 17th century England stirred up technological and scientific progress. Others like Max Weber said that the Protestant ethic had some connection with capitalism and religion was not the only cause and may not have any role to play after science progressed. Along with these views, there are other arguments as well. One of the views is that religion may encourage values that encourage scientific activities and thought. Let us see some examples. We could well say the issue of monotheism. Monotheism means belief in one God. It also implies following a specific law rather than being confused with different types of laws. If science could prove more about God and His creations, science could also have been a religious activity. Well, in some cases, indirect influences can also be there. For example, the choosing of doctors over witchcraft for curing, thereby supporting medical science. Furthermore, Fritz of Capra and Gary Jacob argue of an existing relation between some concept of modern physics and Asian religious or mystical movements. We may understand by this statement that the modern physics and Judeo-Christian Islam monotheism is incompatible. Well, a question arises as to whether a new science-oriented tradition that is religious in nature could arise. Scientology asserts that they are sciences that possess scientific spiritual technology. Let us now discuss Ian Barber's typology that he framed in 1990. He proposed a typology of relation between science and religion. He said that science and religion could relate in four ways: independence, dialogue, integration, and conflict. Professor Gould advocated this independent typology. He did not share harmony with religion when it attacked the evolutionary principles of paleontology. Unfortunately, God got ill with cancer, and it is said he started to take religion more seriously, but he himself never became religious. Now let us understand his principle of noma. His principle of noma, or non-overlapping magisteria, suggests that the authority or magisterium of science satisfies the need to understand the facts of nature, and the magisterium of religion satisfied the need to find the inner meaning of our life and basis for morality. Now, moving on to the dialogue typology. The dialogue can have different forms. The important one is the one involving various intellectuals and learned men from all spheres on the issue of preserving our natural environment or our mother nature. Dialogues have been held in Washington DC, where scientists and evangelical leaders issued an urgent call to protect the nature. Another good example is the work of Brown Taylor and his colleagues, where the most interesting aspects are the relation between environmental movements and religious traditions. Now, we all know that conflict differs across space and time. Conflict rises up when there is a reason to fight or argue, and under such conditions where there is no route to escape it. Well, we could argue that the late 20th century was an unusual time for conciliation between science and religion. It came after the time when religion had lost its hold with public and the state, and science had established formal relationship with the state. Now, we shall discuss another typology as constructed by Philip Hefner. He is the editor of Zygon, Journal of Religion and Science. Hefner offers a 6-4 typology where he suggests that religion may dialogue with and be influenced by science. His typology includes modern, postmodern, new age, critical post-enlightenment, postmodern constructivist, constructivist tradition, and Christian evangelical. Let us now throw some light on the modern option. This aims in transforming the wisdom that has been acquired of the great religions of the world into scientific terms. It believes that scientists should understand that religion is the outcome of evolution that is shaped in such a way that it can help survival of man and its well-being. Science has removed many traditions and values. If we need to get rid of enemy, science should take into account the religious metaphors that has embodied wisdom in order to bring about discipline and altruism. The next option, that is the postmodern new age option, is unsure about the ability of traditional religion to continue provide guidance. It looks forward towards new myths to bring about a pluralistic consensus. The critical post-enlightenment option rejects the idea of religion being the central authority. The option of post-modern constructivist looks forward to free religion from orthodox traditions that lead to difference in power in the society. The fifth option, that is the constructivist traditional option, is an attempt in a theological manner to re-understand science and its concepts in religious ways. In this case, we could take the example that Big Bang in astrophysics is let there be light in the Bible. Last but not the least, the Christian evangelical option suggests that traditional beliefs are not just metaphorically true, but also based on facts and reason, and is not inferior to science and its theories. So, after understanding both Barber and Hebner's typology, we can say that both have been sympathetic to religion while framing this typology. Hebner's argument suggests how religion should respond to science. There is consensual view from both that even though there might be a conflict, religion and science can reconcile and peacefully work in accordance with each other. Now let us discuss the topic of geocentrism. All human beings are centered on oneself. We as humans are concerned with things that matter to us and affect us. As we go on in pursuit of knowledge, it is like that of going to search for something that is beneficial to us. This is why in earlier times, when people looked into the sky, they found connections to their own lives. It is already a known fact that since early times, humans benefited minutely from astronomy, basically in navigation and calendars. But their quest saw no end and made them learn even more. The development of astrology advanced with the Babylonians' faith that their god lived in the planets. This astrology even continues today as a way to know about the future that the god has created for them. This led to mathematics, and in fact scientists still use the 360-degree circle division even today. Ulansey is of the view that MITHRAISM, which believed in astrological symbolism, found a spiritual meaning that was revolutionary in the precision of the equinoxes. The discovery of precession was one of the biggest victories of astronomy in ancient times. What if MITHRAISM had taken over Christianity? The history of science as a whole would have been totally different than what is now. Now, if we see from the Christian perspective, we get a contrasting view, as Christianity doesn't believe much in astrology and stars. The Bible agrees to pre-scientific notion that heavenly bodies move around the earth and suggests that the sun and moon stands still, proving their rejection of the Babylonian astrology. During the 17th century, Galileo presented his argument that earth revolved around the sun. For putting forward this view, the church condemned his theory and was threatened with death. His misadventure may have been a side effect of the religious competition between Catholics and Protestants. At that time, astronomy had just begun as an independent science. Kuhn sees this phase of science as a revolutionary one. Galileo discovered 4 moons of Jupiter by means of a telescope. Copernicus and Kepler, mathematical models of the movements of the planets around the sun, and Newton developed the law of gravity. Now here there are 3 points that needs to be discussed and is very important. Firstly, the new astronomy concluded that heavenly bodies are physical objects and not spiritual beings. Secondly, stars and the planets were detached from the fears and desires of everyday human life. Thirdly and finally, it leads to the displacement of humanity from center of the universe. Well, in modern times, astronomy from the perspective of design specifically doesn't accept the traditional arguments of God's existence, but this does not completely remove the belief that we are God's creation. The theory is God created the world because it fits our existence perfectly. The argument from design loses significance when one realizes that there are innumerable planets and different conditions and life on some could have emerged completely by chance. This is called the anthropic principle. Well, if we think logically, we are living in the earth and not Venus simply because life is not possible in a hot and burning planet. Needless to say, any discussion on how entire universe came into being would be speculative. This is because science is still unable to prove that. There are possibilities that the whole universe is a quantum event, a random fluctuation in space. Now, let us shift our focus to the theory of evolution. Every culture and religion has their own myths regarding the origin of life. However, the Judeo-Christian tradition came into a conflict with the theory on evolution by natural selection. Prior to the existence of the theory of evolution on natural selection by Charles Darwin, there was a debate between catastrophists and gradualists influenced by religion. The base of the former's belief was the legend of Noah's flood was that the geological record of fossils and strata was laid down in a series of relatively short episodes of catastrophic changes. The gradualists believed that Earth is very old and transformed slowly over the millions of years. This view is quite necessary for evolution by natural selection. Today, gradualism has garnered a lot of support by a lot of evidence. However, recently even neo-catastrophism has found a role when the theory of an asteroid hitting the earth bringing an end to the era of dinosaurs is discussed. According to philosopher Daniel Dennett, the theory of evolution by natural selection is incompatible with religion and other traditional human notions, even though it is a fundamentally revolutionary idea. There are 3 fundamental ideas that he marks out. Firstly, variation, secondly, hereditary or replication, and thirdly, differential fitness. Porter aborts the incompatibility of the scientific theory of evolution with religious stories because you cannot narrate it as human thoughts tend to organize things as narratives. However, there are many features of modern life that are compatible with the theory of evolution by natural selection and even need it. For example, contagious diseases are now discussed in terms of mutation of diseases. For example, AIDS, bird flu, Ebola, etc., which can trigger epidemics, causing loss to life in a deadly way. In fact, even Talcott Parsons has described religion as evolutionary. Let us now have a discussion on psychology. Psychology is an important science. It is the science of mental life. Well, what is the most important question in religion asks? It is not whether God exists, but if the soul does. According to Paul Bloom, in 21st century, science and religion will battle to define the human mind. He rejects the belief in the existence of soul. This is because he says we are not aware of how our minds function. When psychiatry was started to be viewed professionally, religion and science were not at peace. Doctors tried to assure the church that they were not against religion and their notions of immortality of soul. The issues raised by psychiatry, that is moral responsibility and nature of the soul, still seem to bother the churches as well as the legal systems of the nations. Now, what is cognitive science? Cognitive science is said to cover all systematic studies of human, animal or machine intelligence along with perception, emotion and cognition. However, cognitive science only lists 7 fields: artificial intelligence, linguistic, psychology, philosophy, education, neuroscience and anthropology. But sociology and political science have not been included, even though both are cognitive in nature when it comes to research areas such as attitudes, beliefs, social influence and ideology. Now, let us discuss on a theory, that is rational choice approach or the exchange theory as proposed by Stark and BAINBRIDGE. This theory is sociological as well as cognitive. Well, according to the rational choice theory, human action takes place through time from past to present. The past is known and future unknown. Human life is replete with problems which a complicated information processing system present in humans tend to identify and find solutions to it. Human desires are many, but are low in supply, and also some of them do not exist at all. When such situations occur, when one cannot simply avail those rewards, they tend to find a way to avail it. When people exchange rewards, they become obliged towards each other, and when the other cannot return the reward in exchange, a compensator comes up in the form of a belief that rewards could be obtained later on. If the desired reward is hard to get, it becomes supernatural. Supernatural beings are imaginary creations that can do things that no normal human can. This led to the rise of religion. This theory seems highly cognitive as well as damaging to religion. It is cognitive in the sense that man, with the help of the mind, plans his future, exchanges information and thoughts, and analyzes his problems. It is damaging to religion because it does not assume that religion has positive functions. Another theory well known in the cognitive science community is the social interference theory. Boyer, Atran, Barrett and others argue that a certain function has been programmed in our mind during the course of revolution that leads to us believing in the existence of a supernatural being. Man evolved, so did his intelligence and the power to understand whom to fear and whom to befriend. They started the system of exchange and then decided whom to trust amongst themselves as well. Humans then developed an inference system. Now let us move to the issue of convergence. Convergence literally means coming together. In 1998, a sociobiologist, Edward Wilson, used the term conscience to explain that converging of different sciences to one science. There are many authors who argue that different branches of technology are merging together, namely nanotechnology, biotechnology, information technology and other technologies that new and based on cognitive sciences. BAINBRIDGE is of the view that religion can never be a part of this convergence and conflicts may arise if done so. When science was divided, no scientists experienced contradiction between their work and religious beliefs. Complete unification may result in a loss of belief in their religion. Hence, if unification of science takes place, chances is there that it might become the universal world culture. This scene has been based on the assumption that science is very much influential in today's world, and this might not be so. The products created by science are necessary for economic well-being. However, it is the corporate world and the government who controls it and not the scientist. Now with this we come to the end of our discussion on religion and science. We can say that there are many religious intellectuals, social scientists and academicians who have tried or are trying to bring about harmony and reconciliation between the two fields of science and religion. Religion and science seem to accommodate each other despite of conflicts. They also do encourage each other. There are also many foundations that seek to unite religion and science. Many scholars and scientists have tried to show the relation between science and religion based on realities of the late 20th century. Historically, science has been encouraged by some of the religions, and some religion tends to have a certain kinship with some branches of science even in recent times. Various typologies have been framed to study the relation between science and religion. While there are cases where religion had rejected science and vice versa, but the scholarly and socially scientific attempts to relate these two subjects are still going on. Let me end by saying that there may have been differences and conflicts, but efforts are on to make both the fields work in harmony. I thank you all for participating in this lecture. Thank you once more.